Hi grown-ups, a video for you. So I noticed in the Zoom meetings and a few of our seesaw activities where I'm seeing videos of my friends that some of our TK friends are starting to read. Or if they're not quite reading yet, they're exhibiting these pre-reading behaviors. That means it's almost time, they're very close. Normally, this time of the year in school, I would be doing lots of little fiddly teacher things to sort of support that and get us over the cusp into reading. Unfortunately, I'm obviously not there. You are. So I was thinking that I might do a little video because I tried to type it out and got overwhelmed. So I'm just going to say a bunch of stuff and give you a little bit of a crash course in supporting an emergent reader, which you have at home. So I'm sorry that this might be a little bit long. It might be a little meandering. I'm just going to try and say all the things I know and as concise as possible about some strategies to support emerging readers. Before I get into strategies, a little bit of background information about reading philosophy or reading education philosophy. There are two main camps. There's whole language and there's phonetic language. And these two philosophies for a long time have been at odds, and they have different kinds of strategies. Whole language proponents feel that this is how grown-ups read. We don't sound out words. We look at the text and we recognize the word and we read it. So we don't have to sound it out every single time. We know what it says. And you can see these like little puzzles where they keep the first and last letter the same, but they mix up all the letters in the middle, but you can still read the sentence fine. Because as adults, we use whole language. We don't sound it out. We just know what it says. So some people feel that you should teach children this way because that's how they're going to eventually read anyways. So they do a lot of like tracing the outlines of the shapes of the words, and some letters are tall and some letters hang below. And they do a lot of reading where you use context clues and clues from the picture to figure out what the word is. You could see that in when we read Rainbow Colors, we were looking for clues in the pictures. So rainbows are red like a strawberry is red. You don't have to be able to read rainbow and strawberry because it's repetitive. You know what it says already, and you can look for clues in the picture to support your understanding of the text. So that's one philosophy, is the whole language, being able to recognize words, those sight words, without sounding out. Unfortunately, if you encounter a word that you really don't know what it says and there's not enough context clues, you're out of luck. The other camp is phonetic language. This is classic sounding it out. So we have done a lot of work with our secret stories and learning a bunch of phonetic rules. You look at each letter individually and what sounds do they make, and you blend it together into the word. The advantage of this system is that you can encounter any word, and as long as you know enough phonetic rules, you can figure out what that word says. The disadvantage is that if you are constantly sounding out words, you won't be able to understand the text that you're reading. Your brain will be looking at the word that you're trying to figure out and they've forgotten what the beginning of the sentence was saying, and you won't have comprehension. So the pendulum of what we should teach in school has gone back and forth. I advocate for a blended approach, so that's why you see me using strategies from both sides. Given that, just so that we have some kind of structure, I'm going to start with like the most advanced reader that we might encounter in this age group and work my way backwards, because a lot of the strategies sort of trickle down and you can use them with earlier developmental stages. So, rule number 1, if whatever reading activity you are doing with your child feels like pulling teeth, if they are getting frustrated or angry, or they're pushing the book away or trying to get up and wander away and do something else, it's too hard. don't worry about it. Just try again in a day or two, or, try an earlier strategy and come back to this in a few weeks. Reading should be fun and magical, and if it's too hard, it doesn't mean that you have to teach it harder. It means that your child isn't quite ready developmentally for that stage. There are lots of other foundational skills that you can work on to support their development so that they will be ready for that stage in a little while, and it's fine. So that's rule number 1. No teeth pulling. All right, so let's say that your child has sort of at least 10 or 20 sight words that's in their reading vocabulary, whole language style. They see the word and they know what it is immediately. They don't have to sound out, and they're reading a few pages or some of books that are simple, and they're sounding out some words. Okay, I think there are a few that are doing this in our class. It's pretty advanced for TK, but that's the kind of class we have this year. So my first suggestion is to find books that are at their reading level. And then this gets tricky. We usually consider at your comfortable reading level to be only having to figure out 1 in every 10 words. At 1 in every 20 words. But if we're looking at some of these simple books, like I Love My Pet, I love my cat, I love my dog, there's there might not even be 20 words in this book. So I usually think about on a page, there should be only 1, maybe 2 words that they're trying to figure out, and the other ones they know already. That's their comfortable reading level. Their instructional reading level, which a teacher would use to push their reading forward, is that they know that they have to figure out 1 in 10 words, or when you get older, up to 5 words on a page they have to figure out. I would recommend finding books that are on your child's comfortable reading level. If they're trying to figure out more words than that, then that's called their frustrational reading level. And rule number 1 is no teeth pulling. So we don't want that. There are a lot of sets of books like these little guided science readers that you can see. It's A, B, C. I think these go up to F, which is first grade. So it's plenty. There are also these Just Right readers. These are pretty cute. They have their reading level on the inside. These are all available through Scholastic. You can order on Scholastic and they'll deliver to your house now. You can also look for books on readingiq.com is a really good resource. They have a lot of online picture books for kids at lots of different reading levels. Unfortunately, the library is closed. Maybe this summer you can get into the library and start picking out books. So you found books that are on your child's reading level, and we're having fun sitting together and reading together. The next strategy I want to talk about is giving think time. If your child is trying to figure out a word, and you jump in and tell them what the word is, they didn't learn anything. They'll just, say that word and move on and forget it. Give them enough think time. It feels really unnatural. As adults, we just want to we know what the word is. It's strawberry. But if you stay quiet and calm, and just give them the think time, they might figure it out. And that process of figuring it out is where the learning is happening. So don't jump onto it too soon. If you wait for 7 or 8 seconds or they're looking at you with panic in their eyes, their brains have stalled and they're not figuring it out because they don't know where to start. Give them a starting point. You might say, what's the first letter? What sound does it make? And give them a starting point if it's a word that they could sound out. If it's a word that they probably can't sound out, you might say, is there a picture? Is there a clue in the picture that we can look at? Giving those little prompts helps their brain start, and then they might figure it out, and that's where the learning happens. So those are my two big strategies. Find books that are on your child's level, and then give that think time and maybe a prompt for a starting spot. And if they really are getting frustrated, you can give them the word and move on and try this. This one is too hard and come back to it later. Great. So let's go down a developmental level. If your child is sounding out individual words, but they don't have a big vocabulary of sight words yet, I think a lot of the kids in our class are here. We're going to use those same strategies of giving them the think time, offering those starting place prompts, and then because they're not like reading a whole sentence yet, because each word is a new puzzle, we can play games that include reading individual words. So you could play word bingo, where you have a bingo sheet with lots of different words and you like pull a picture out of it, or maybe you could just say like, oh, cat, oh, put a piece on cat. That way they have to think about cat starts with k. Is there a word here that starts with a C or a K? There's two. This one ends with a T. This one must be cat. Or maybe they'll like try to read the individual words. That would be great. You can play memory, where you have the word and a picture, so they're trying to match the words with the picture, and then they have to read the individual words. That's really good. You can write little books together, so like we did a letter book where each page had a single word that started with that letter. You could maybe try and make a whole set, the whole alphabet, and that act of writing out those words will get them started and thinking about how letters go together to make words. You can play silly read, where you read together a book that and you change a word. Obviously, my father used to do this with me. He would read me the rabbit with the loose, instead of tooth, he would say, oh, it's the rabbit with the loose ear. No, Dad, it's not a loose ear. But then together go back and try and read the word together. That's the correct word. Oh, it's a loose tooth. Of course. How silly of me. It's engaging. It's fun. It's a shared reading experience. You can make phrase puzzles. You know how in Kookaburra we used the lyrics of the Kookaburra song? They know what the lyrics are because they've sung it. They have it memorized. You can use lyrics of songs. You can use familiar books, or you can use repetitive books, and write the words out and mix them up, and then put them in back in order. The way that they're trying to figure out which word goes where, they're reading individual words and putting it together. You can play hangman, but with no losing. We do this at school, where I write out the alphabet, I put the lines for the mystery word, and then they guess letters, and we cross them off as we guess them so we can keep track, and then eventually I know what the word is, right? So they're thinking about what word it could be, but no losing. Who cares? Great. So it's a lot of fun games to practice reading those individual words. Remember to give wait time. Remember to give those starting place cues. And you can leverage any pre-reading behaviors that you're seeing, which brings us to the pre-reading developmental stage. So pre-reading is when children are doing things like that look like reading but aren't. So they have the book memorized, and so they turn the pages and they say the words. Or they look at the pictures of a book and make up a story. Sometimes grown-ups come to me and they say, well, but they're not really reading. And it's like, no, they're not. But this is a developmental stage, and those kinds of behaviors, the rereading memorized text or making up stories to go along with the pictures, are moving them towards the next developmental stage. And so we should encourage those. If we see those kinds of behaviors, we definitely encourage, you are reading. Oh, I love to hear you read. Will you read me that book again? It's all good. So if they are rereading a memorized text, you can do this with songs are great because we easily memorize songs, or a book that you've read many times together and they just know all the words. Have them use a pointer or their finger to try and follow the words as they read them. So this starts to make the connection for them between the words that they know and these mystical symbols on the page. If they point to the word the and say the word the enough times, they'll start to recognize it, or they'll start to skip a word and then get confused because this word definitely starts with an S, but this one doesn't. Oh, here's strawberry, and get back on path. So they're starting to make those connections. That's leveraging those pre-reading behaviors into reading. Okay, so when children are pre-reading, it's great. You should be encouraging. I find that writing, having them write and sound out words, is really helpful. Because when you write a word, there's no puzzle. When you're reading a word, you have to figure out what sounds the letters make. And, A says ah, unless it says A because there's a silent E, or maybe there's another vowel next to it, and so it says A unless there's an R, and then it says R, but maybe it says which it does sometimes. There's a puzzle and there's a right answer, and until you find the right answer, you have failed. When you're writing, you know what it's going to say, and you just listen for the sounds, you write down whatever sounds you hear, and it's good enough, and you've written. So when you're writing, you're starting to make those connections, and you're reading what you've written, and you're like sounding out and blending and taking apart words. Those skills are foundational to help you read later. I think, I have my little notes here. Did I miss any strategies? Use a pointer, read songs? No. Oh, if you're pre-reading and we're working on our phonetic awareness, some fun games to play with phonological awareness and being able to hear the parts of words and break them apart and blend them together. You can play I Spy with the parts of the words. I spy something that begins with P, or harder, I spy something that ends with T. You can blend and segment words together, and that's really fun. You say, oh, if I have mouse and I take away the what's left? Is a fun game to kill a few minutes. You can also use letter magnets and letter cards to take away one letter and replace it with another and start playing with words that way. So caught becomes taught, becomes top, becomes tap. And those kinds of games are really fun. Kids also really love stringing together a bunch of random letters and having you read them phonologically. Totally fun. And it's building those foundational skills that will lead to the next developmental stage. So I know that was a lot. Here's the video so you can watch it as many times as you want. If you have any questions, please let me know. I'm happy to answer to the best of my ability. And I hope that you enjoy reading with your child, because reading is one of these magical things that only humans get to do. So until next time.